Good morning. The Modi government, in its 2024 Party General Election Manifesto, has listed G20 presidency in 2023 as an exceptional achievement of the government. And because of G20, they say that India has become a voice of the global south, and it can also be called to be the bridge between the global north and the global south and India. I mean, there are other achievements also of foreign policy, but this is the key one that they keep talking about. And because of this, India today has become, from a balancing power that it used to be, a leading power in the world today. And all this has been possible because of the profile of the Prime Minister himself, who is being addressed as a Vishwaguru, the wise man of the world. And the foreign policy today of India is a policy of Vishwamitra. That means we are friends with all. Now, these are huge claims. Why I say claims is, we know that thousands of crores were spent in 2023 by the government in taking this G20 message right till the remotest village in the country, through hoardings, through neon lights, and through big posters, through social media, through television. And yes, today, even when you ask a villager, a person from rural India, he knows that, he doesn't know what is G20, but he knows that something big has been done by this government, and it was possible because of Prime Minister Modi. And surprisingly, if you check with the urban Indian also, who is supposedly educated, he also believes. He believes that yes, G20 was a big achievement. How do you call anything an achievement? If we spent crores on this event, did it really help India in its development and in the prosperity of its people? Or was it something like the 2016 surgical strikes that the government did against Pakistan using the military, which only helped the electoral prospects of the party, the ruling party? So was it something like this in foreign policy done? So I want to discuss all this in today's video. So let me take up all these points. Let's start with G20. Now G20, when we see what it is, then the manifesto says that the success of G20 was that there was 100% convergence on the Delhi Declaration. So that's point number one. That means the joint statement issued at the end of the summit, all the countries agreed, which is why it was possible to issue the joint statement. Very good. Now, why did they agree? Now a bit of a background is required to understand that. So the background is, we know that global geopolitics has shifted from Europe to Asia Pacific region, which is our region. And primarily because of two factors. One is the rise of China, and the second is the rise of global south, which is where you have the fastest growing economies of the world. So it has shifted here. And the other thing that has happened is that there are two ways of thinking now in the multipolar world that has come to exist. So there are two blocks, two stacks. We just need to understand what is the thinking and how is it different in the two. One is led by America, where the thinking is balance of power. Now, balance of power is based on military power. It is about a zero-sum game. That means if I win, you lose, and you win and I lose. That means it is about competitive relationship. When we talk of competitive relationship, there is always a very thin line from competition spilling over to containment, constrainment, to crisis, conflict and combat. All this is possible. So it's a very delicate relationship where a leader is required in this pack, in this block. So the leader is America. Then you need the lead also. Those people are required. And that is what used to be called during the Cold War the second world. The industrialized nations which were there, part of NATO and beyond. All those countries are there in this, and this is what global north is about, balance of power. And when we see in terms of population of the world, this has about 20% of the population, that's it. but it has about 45% of the global GDP. So India, the Modi government, aspires or wishes to be seen very close to the global north, because we have developed a very cozy relationship with America, which I said is the leader of the pack. Now, the other thinking is absolutely different. That thinking is based on how to give prosperity to people. So when it is about prosperity, that means you are looking at optimal or maximum production. Now for maximum production, you are looking at partnership relationship, you are not looking at a leader and a led. So it is about partnership, it is about win-win, not a zero-sum game. And it is about globalization. It is important that all the countries of the world, something like 193 countries in the world today, they all should work together for the common good of mankind. That is the thinking. Now here we have two countries which are again great powers. There are three great powers in the world today. One is America leading that pack, and there are two here in this pack, the pack of global south. And they are China and they are Russia. And in this global south that I am talking about, these countries are what used to be called during the Cold War the third world countries, the underprivileged, less developed, developing, all those countries came in that. And they constituted something like 80% of the world population. That means today when we look at global south, something like 125 nations out of 193, they constitute global south. But they still have GDP close to 45% GDP. But as I said, they are the fastest growing economies. That means this is now moving, it will develop their GDP at a very rapid pace. Now, when you look at this and now you look at the position where India is located, India's geography, India's huge market, it should become very clear that the pack which believes in balance of power needs India to be the bulwark, to be the upfront face of the global north against China, because this is balance of power and India is ideally located there. And as far as China and Russia are concerned and the global south is concerned, well, India is a member of BRICS, India is a member of SCO, India is a member of New Development Bank, which is the BRICS Bank, and India happens to be part of global south. They certainly want India to be part of global south and remain there. Now let us address that question of 100% convergence. First of all, everybody agrees that the joint statement was a diluted version of the Bali Declaration before it, done 1 year ago. But it was produced because both sides want India. And I've just explained why they want India. So, as far as global south is concerned, President Putin of Russia wasn't there and President Xi Jinping didn't come there, but the Chinese premier attended and he spoke about globalization. That was the key message that he wanted to give at the G20 summit of Delhi, and he delivered that. So, the next thing is, what does this make India? A leading power or what? No, it doesn't make India a leading power. It makes India what is called by the strategists a major geopolitical pivot. Because here we are sitting, India is sitting because of its geography right there at the center of two big hubs. And what are the two big hubs? One big hub is the Western Pacific, where the balance of power is being played out by America. And the other big hub is the African continent, where the Chinese and the Russian led global south partnership relationship is being played out. I'll just come to that in a while. So India is not a leading power as is repeatedly made out by External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, because we simply don't have those attributes. And the biggest attribute is, in national power you need the technology. We are not at the level of being called even a major power, forget about a leading power. We are nowhere there. as far as technology, because technology influences economy, it influences military power, and these are the three attributes as far as national power is concerned. So I'm sorry to say, Mr. Jaishankar, India actually is not from, it used to be a balancing power, and in a multipolar world which is unstable right now and which will remain unstable till both these blocks they are concretized, India will remain a major geopolitical pivot. That is the answer. Now, next is, so much is being talked about G20. G20 we know is a intergovernmental forum. It does not have a secretariat and it has a rotational presidency. India got that in the rotation. It got in 23 and 24, which is this year. It's with Brazil. Now, what is the relevance of G20? Let's look at that. Where did G20 come from? It came from G7. Now, G7 are the industrialized nations which used to talk politics, which used to talk balance of power. And then we know that the crisis happened, a lot of economic crisis happened, global. 2008 happened once. So because of that, it was decided in 1999 that all right, G7 is okay, but let's have the emerging economies of the world also come in, and let's make that grouping forum. Let's call it G20, where we can discuss economic issues, where we can discuss finance, we can discuss sustainable development goals of UN. That was the whole idea. Now, when I say 1999, please keep in mind that it was a unipolar moment. It was not a bipolar world, it was a unipolar world. America was the sole power, and America then was advocating globalization. This is important, which today it is not doing and the Chinese are doing, because now it has realized that it has a competitor in China. So it was a globalized world, and so the Americans took the initiative and G20 was created. Now, recently we have seen in 2022, in May of 2023, when the G7 summit happened in Hiroshima, Japan, G7, this is after the Ukraine crisis, the war had started there. They were only discussing the politics. So it is G7 from G20 back to G7 because the globalization is over. I'm not saying it will go away, G20. What I'm saying is its relevance has gone down. Similarly, when there was a crisis in West Asia recently, we saw the Iranians retaliate to what the Israelis did. Then the first thing that the Americans did was they collected the G7 nations for the meeting. So it is back to G7. It is back to G7 as far as the G7 countries are concerned, led by America. They are already talking of deglobalization, de-risking. It all shows the decreasing relevance of G20 that we are so much talking about. Now, next thing is that it was said that look, it was because of India that the African Union became the 21st member of G20, so it is G21 now, and therefore India had a virtual summit of the African nations, and now it has become a voice of the global south. This is being said that we are a voice for the global south. Voice means leadership, that we are the leader for the global south. Now, as I said, as far as the world is concerned, we have something like 193 countries. In global south, you have something like 125 countries, and the African continent is 55 nations. Huge chunk of the global south. So let us now look at very closely what exactly is this African Union, on the basis of which Jaishankar keeps talking that we are the voice of global south. Now, you see, this African Union was created or came into being in July of 2002. And it came from what used to be called the Organization of African Unity, which was established in 1963 in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. The whole idea in 2002 was that some sort of a representation of the entire African continent should be there at the world stage, and hence the need for the African Union. But what has happened in the last 20 years is there is a renaissance on the African continent. And the people who are helping this renaissance, the country, is China and Russia, which has replaced now the colonists, the Americans and the French. They are being thrown out. Recent there was news that from Niger, the Americans were told to leave. That means all the 5 countries of the Sahel region, they'll also be telling the Americans to go away. The French are also going away now. And here is the point. What is happening when I say renaissance? There is an awareness coming. An awareness that we will not be exploited, we will take control of our destinies, we will have our own manufacturing. And today, these are the statistics of the United Nations that I am giving you. 11 of the 20 fastest growing economies of the world are in Africa, on the continent. And 60%, as far as demography is concerned, 60% youth population aspirational, they are in the African continent. So what has China done? China has been working there for the last 35, 40 years, building up connectivity, building up infrastructure, and realizing that there is an awareness to do something by themselves. Please recall, in October of 2023, China held in Beijing, under the chairmanship of Xi Jinping, the third Belt and Road Initiative, the third Belt and Road Forum was held, a very big event where the chief guest was President Putin. But immediately after the forum, there was a conference held. I'm not talking virtual conference, a physical conference was held where 33 countries of the African nations came, and the conference was Belt and Road Forum, Africa Forum. This conference was held, and what was announced there? Xi Jinping announced that he will be in the Belt and Road Forum. He said $105 billion China will spend over the next 5 years, and the focus will be on small projects. What is this small projects? He is obviously talking of the third and the fourth industrial revolution, the digitization and the introduction of artificial intelligence. And this is exactly what was said at the African Forum also in Beijing. And as far as and he also promised that this grouping, the Belt and Road Forum, will have a secretariat of its own. Right now, none of these governmental forums, they have a secretariat of their own. It was promised there, and the Africans were told that they will be provided full support. And how full support will be provided? By what he initiated, Xi Jinping spoke of something called Global Artificial Intelligence Initiative, which basically means that we will bring in the fourth industrial revolution. The standards will be ours, but you will be at liberty to discuss and decide the roles, regulations and the norms of those industries, which we will help you set up on your continent. So you see, when you look at all this, does it appear that India has really become a voice or the leader of the global south? I mean, let's not get into rhetoric. Now, move on further. India says, and Jay Shankar repeatedly says this, that we are the voice of global south, we are the leader. You cannot be a leader. There are 2 reasons why you can't be a leader. Number 1, I've just said that global south is about a partnership relationship. You don't need leaders there. Have you heard China or Russia say that we are the leaders of global south? No. I mean, they are the supporters. They are supporting this global south to the hilt. Not once they have said we are leaders, what our leaders keep on saying of the government ministers. And number 2, unlike the global north, the global south is still expanding and consolidating. So what leadership are you talking of? For example, Saudi Arabia, a very important player. It signed membership for BRICS, but physically hasn't yet joined BRICS. The day it joins BRICS, then the entire the supremacy of the US dollar, and if it decides to do the petro trade in the local currency or a digital currency on which President Putin is working on as the president of the BRICS this year, the Russians are working on, then this whole dominance of the dollar will be shaken up very badly. So it is consolidating. Nothing much has happened there. Now, a related claim is that we are the bridge between global south and global north. Nonsense. As I said, A, the thinking is very different, and B, which is most important, which perhaps Jai Shankar needs to understand, that today global south and global north will not come together. It will never happen. And the reason for that is very simple, that because of the technology war initiated by the Americans, we are already seeing the Western technology and we are seeing the Chinese technology. The technologies, and this is called splinter net. For example, the internet of the world, where you have Google, where you have Facebook, is not available in China. So the net has splintered. When you have different technologies, and now when they are talking of trade, of e-commerce, they are talking of, as far as finances are concerned, in cryptocurrency and then digital currency backed by blockchain technology. So all this will change. It will make trade between West, the global North and global South extremely difficult. Now, will that help India? Answer is no. You are located here. You are wanting to sit in the lap of the Americans. No harm, please go and sit there. But your key responsibility must remain to the global South, because that is where you belong. Because you need globalization for the prosperity, you need peace. You need peace with China, you need peace with Pakistan, for the simple reason, without peace there will be no development, and without peace there will be no deterrence. So therefore, when we talk of this G20 as a big achievement, actually India has, if you see very realistically, the Modi government has agreed to be a vessel of the global North, whereas it has a great opportunity to be a big partner of the global South. And this is where I disagree with G20, and honestly, there is nothing much to talk about in the foreign policy. It is rhetoric, it is jumla, it's jumlebaji. Thank you very much.